What the world needs right now is a Shero.
Heck would dye their dog pink? It's okay, little guy. Don't be afraid. Say, you got a collar, buddy? Or a head? Or feet? Oh, that tickles.
Whoa. Who are you?
Maxxie La Wow.
Maxxie La Wow!
Hey, squirrel friend, listen up. There's a new Shero in town.
Want to go. So we have to pick a title. I am not as good at this as Vance is. Vance is so brilliant at this, and this is why I need him around, because he knows, he hears things and goes, oh, that's a great title. Oh, that's a great title. These are things you've said, but I'm not as good as he is. So I'm going to give you the best that I got. All right. So in order, I Felt Sort of Lucky, The Hardly Girls, Tuckerton, wait a minute. Oh, no. Murgatroyd, The Super Chicken, Tuckerton, Maxxie La Wow, Wow, Skirt and Girdle, Dyna Bolical, or Resourceful, Determined, and Tired.
I might suggest the Maxxie one or the Dyna one. What's funny is that people love Maxxie, that's great, but a lot of people really love Dyna Bolical. And that is such a great, like, draggy, kind of villain name, and I hope it becomes iconic in some way too. So I've been talking with my scriptwriting partner. Originally, Dyna just got like a 2-second, like, oh look, she's performing over there, back to this interaction. I'm like, no, she needs to have a whole number all on her own with an original song. By the way, we're doing original songs for these two.
Oh, excellent. So which one of those would you like to use?
I will defer to your discretion. I might suggest the Maxxie one or the Dyna one, Dyna Bolical.
We could add She's Dyna Bolical.
That works, yeah.
To call it that. Okay. Welcome to season 6, episode 36. She's Dyna Bolical. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm flying solo this week. Vance had some family things to take care of. So we are so pleased for you to be here. We have Anthony Hand with us, who is here to talk about a new queer project that he's working on, an animation project. Looks fab. I think you guys are going to love it. So Anthony Hand is a product designer and former entrepreneur. Put my dentures back in. Entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, where he puts his storytelling skills to use on a daily basis. Anthony has seen every season of RuPaul's Drag Race since season 1. Boy, you get a gold star just for that. Frequents local and national cabaret and theater, and is recovering comic book geek. Drag legend Dina Martina is his spirit totem. I can identify with that. Okay, Anthony is also the president of the Silicon Valley Gay Men's Chorus. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Big round of applause. So why don't you tell folks how you decided to become a storyteller? What was the impetus? Where did it begin? Who were your inspirations? And tell us what your journey's been so far.
Sure. So sort of like back in the distant ages, I was reflecting on this morning about how I think lucky I was growing up, even though I grew up in a small farming village in Michigan, like an hour from Ann Arbor, out in the boonies. And my parents are both factory workers. My mother read to us as kids. And, I got an early start on books and reading. And I think I started reading Hardy Boys in the 3rd grade. Of course, when the Hardy Boys show came on in the 70s, I totally fell in love with Frank and his nice furry chest, let me tell you. Totally, absolutely.
You and about every other gay boy out there.
Absolutely. And then I went into fantasy soon after that. So maybe from 3rd or 4th grade, I went into sort of Shannara and Dragon Riders of Pern. And so this is a genre that I have a special kind of affiliation towards. That being said, so in middle school, I wrote a story for a paper called The Hardly Girls, of course, a satire of the Hardy Boys. And then in high school, for my school newspaper, again, small farming village, maybe 600 people in the village limits, I wrote a column in our high school newspaper called Murgatroyd the Super Chicken. And all the villains and adventures, were all like names of chicken breeds. So who knew there were so many chicken breeds?
Right. And some of them are drag queens in and of themselves.
Oh, totally.
Girl. All those little gay farm boys going, I can do something with that.
Absolutely.
So tell us how that snowballed into where you're going now.
So from a creative process, I really didn't do much writing in my 20s. But, in 2000, I moved to Boston, which really corresponded well with the Will and Grace. And I feel like from a kind of pop culture perspective, Will and Grace, and of course, Ellen's coming out, represented like a milestone moment in our culture that opened the door for so many after them. So I moved to Boston and I started going to Provincetown. So if you've never been to Provincetown, it is a little slice of heaven. Gay couples, LGBTQ couples of all shapes and sizes hang out in P-Town all summer long and all year round. And it's kind of like that fictional town in Schitt's Creek where no one cares if you're gay. No one cares if you walk down the street in, a sea witch costume from, it's no one bats an eye. Yeah, exactly. And what's really great about P-Town too is that there are drag queens who set up shop there every summer. So Varla Jean Merman, Dina Martina, Miss Richfield, huge names. And for me personally, also like I didn't really appreciate drag until I started going to P-Town. And when I lived in Boston in the 2000s and encountering these drag queens, and then I really kind of saw a little bit more about and came to appreciate drag as an art form, drag as a platform for storytelling, and drag as a platform for kind of poking at culture and poking at politics and kind of the deeper aspects of it as well, just sort of wrapped in this big, fluffy, fun, kind of entertaining ball.
Excellent. So how did you get from that to where you're going now?
Again, kind of a little bit of time, but it was
because it shows that you say you're a production designer and entrepreneur, and I'm going, okay, that doesn't necessarily need you to animation where you are now. So I'm just really curious of how to unpack that and figure out how you got there.
Well, I feel like there was a confluence of culture and things happening in the wider culture, and then in the post RuPaul's Drag Race kind of era too, where now I think we're able to start seeing, when we think of LGBTQ, it's not just L, it's not just G, it's a whole bunch of letters, and representation of these other letters in wider culture, whether it's books or TV or movies or whatever, when it's happened, it's often not been very flattering. And it just hasn't happened much as well, of course, sadly. And, I'd say in the post RuPaul's Drag Race kind of era too, we're starting to see more representation of drag and drag entertainment in general. Now we're starting to see even more drag kings. And I bet a lot of folks didn't even know there were drag kings until fairly recently. And we're also starting to see more trans people being represented in media also, as we talk about, the tragedies of so many trans folks being killed in our country and around the world. So like in 2018, kind of just shout out here, Marvel had this drag superhero who was in a couple of books in 2018. And I can't remember exactly what year we see a trans superhero appear in Supergirl with Nicole Maines, and she was, breaking grounds with that role too. And I think it was 2018 also when Netflix released Super Drags, a series on Netflix that you can watch still today. And it was from a small gay-owned studio in Brazil and they English dubbed it, and the English dub is fantastic. They got folks like Trixie Mattel, and I think Jinx Monsoon had a role too. And it's really good. Yeah, it's a very adult animation though. So for example, you can see one of the superheroes is very well hung, and I don't think there's a lot of talking going on there. What's fun about Super Drags is it's kind of like Charlie's Angels meets Sailor Moon meets RuPaul's Drag Race. And it's kind of like...
That's one hell of a combination.
Right? Yeah, it's fantastic. And so it was on seeing this, I'm like, this is fun and it's entertaining. And I love that it's kind of breaking ground in itself too. But I didn't want to share that with my mother so much. I'm not sure she would have found it so accessible. And I think that's one thing that's kind of interesting about drag too, is when we think about these different, I think that Maxxie La Wow, the animated feature film Maxxie La Wow, will make her history, of course, because it is animated and it's about a drag superhero. But I think it also kind of appeals to 4 different fandoms. One fandom is, of course, LGBTQ community broadly. One is anyone who likes animation, I think is going to love this. Anyone who likes superheroes will like this too. And then we have this 4th emerging fandom around drag. And this 4th emerging fandom, like when we look at the demographics for RuPaul's Drag Race, and especially as it grows its franchises to Spain and Down Under and the UK and Holland and so on, there are so many straight women who love drag. And, this is drag, for whatever reason, I think is a safe space where our straight women allies can come and can enjoy being with us and have fun and, enjoy also all the campiness and the artistry of drag.
They can let their hair down. They can let their guard down.
Totally. Too. Yeah, totally. And so I kind of envision Maxxie La Wow as being a project that will appeal to our straight allies as well. And maybe subversively, I can imagine that, our straight allies, primarily, especially women, will take their husbands and their boyfriends to see these shows or to watch it in their living room when it streams on TV someday. And then kids will enjoy it as well. We're aiming for 14 and older kind of crowd, but I think it'll be great.
Well, it's interesting too, because, animation has had a big bloom. I mean, it was always there. It was always a part of it. But, when you think of animation in its heyday, it was all the Warner Brothers stuff. That was the big golden era of all that stuff. But I think what's been happening in the last 20, 25, almost 30 years is that Japan always had really good animation going on, but we've kind of stalled for a bit. And now there's this big resurgence and renaissance of
Totally.
animation coming forward. And what I think it does is that medium in particular, much like music in many respects, kind of takes the stigma sting out of the equation, because you're permitted more in animation. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
And is that one of the reasons why you chose this avenue to do it rather than live action? Or what was the impetus to go animation?
Well, live action would be a lot cheaper.
I was just thinking the
opposite. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, no, it would be a lot cheaper if we went with live action. But with animation, like you said, we're able to explore that. We're creating this fantasy world for Maxxie La Wow and Dyna Bolical. You can see in my wallpaper, she's the girl in the purple outfits, also a drag queen. And, we're able to really explore the fantasy elements of this world and the other folks in it in a way that would be really, really hard to do with live action. I mean, I envision, for example, that Maxxie La Wow will have, because we start the animation production process in September. And so we're anticipating like a Maxxie kind of transformation sequence that's very reminiscent of Sailor Moon. So, it's hard to do that in live action in a way that really respects that. And
absolutely.
And every time Maxxie says her name, there's an invisible chorus all around her singing out Maxxie La Wow. And everyone's like, what?
Puts a whole new spin on Shazam. I'll tell you that much.
Totally. It just lends itself really, really well to an animation medium. And then we can also borrow from the anime kind of genre or the world of anime and do some really kind of fun things with camera angles and panning.
Well, and I also noticed in the preview, and we'll make sure we have a link so people can see a tidbit of it. And then people just need to know that there is an Indiegogo project, which we'll talk about in just a second, that you can go view the whole thing, and you'll be able to, invest your dollars, because that's what this is all about. We're trying to get this thing off the ground for Anthony. So, but, I think it's interesting because, when I watched the little snippet, one of the things I also got was very much Warner Brothers, with the backdrops and stuff like that. It has that slight Warner Brothers feel, in that it's kind of, the angles are kind of slightly obtuse a bit. You have the skewing of the buildings a little bit, which lends itself to that whole look that they had in the 50s with, the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. It was that kind of montage background. And I think I don't know if you intended it, but it seems like for me, that was one of the things. I'm like, oh, I really love the visual look of this, because it kind of gives me the sentimental feels. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that was an intention of yours, but that was one of the things I took away. I'm like, oh, I love this because it's very familiar ground to me. I think sometimes when people, if they're not into Japanese anime, it takes them a while to get into that look and feel and that way of telling stories. But I think what you've done here is you've given it a almost homage to like historical animation before, but with your own slant on it, which really makes it come alive and it pops. But there is that sentimental underlying feeling throughout the whole thing that I got right away. I was like, oh, I'm an 8-year-old kid with my cereal and, I'm just here ready to have my next adventure with Maxxie, So was that an intentional thing? Did you want kind of that underlying sentimental feel?
So we have, I definitely was looking for an 80s style vibe with this also, with more of a 80s style vibe with the modern sensibility, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so this is a 2-minute preview piece I worked with an overseas animation company, and I'd say they did a great job. And then starting this fall, we're working with an LA-based studio. And part of the reason why we're doing the Indiegogo to raise this $50,000 is it will help us work with them to do more diving into the look and feel and really kind of exploring how we want that world to look like across like much of the action takes place in a cafe called the Pink Unicorn Cafe. Another big chunk of action takes place at this bar in this small town called the Skirt and Girdle. So this will allow us to really kind of work with and develop these backgrounds and like what this world looks like, and then how people move through the world and everything. So I think it'll be really, it'll be an exciting process to work through.
Yeah, because I noticed there was like
there
was kind of an outdoor sequence in the rough cut that you showed me that had kind of like. I'm trying to, almost a, I don't want to say Ren and Stimpy because that's not what I'm really thinking. But it has that like, it looks like you're blending urban with rural. So that's got kind of that duality in the visuals, because I saw that one sequence that was outdoors. It looked like it was in a park or in a forest or something. And so I thought it was kind of interesting that sorry, my cat, that it definitely looked like an adventure kind of thing, because it wasn't just, oh, this is all an urban tale, that there's some things that go on beyond the outskirts of whatever city you're setting it in. Is it a fictional city, or is it someplace that's on the map somewhere?
So we're setting this in the fictional town of Tuckerton. And so we are definitely playing with drag queen lingo here. And this is why it's called Tuckerton. And we don't see it, but the disco, the cabaret / disco nightclub which will be in this production, is called Skirt and Girdle. And then there's also a gay bar in town that's like a drag leather, like a leather bar, and that'll be called the Meaty Tuck. So we're having fun playing with words here as well. And maybe it would be good to give a quick summary. I realize I skipped giving a summary of the movie.
Yeah.
So Maxxie La Wow tells the story of Simon, a shy young barista who finds a magic wig that turns him into the titular drag super-shero, Maxxie La Wow. We have a villain in this piece as well, and her name is Dyna Bolical. And Dyna Bolical has discovered that drag queen tears have magical anti-aging properties. So she's been kidnapping queens around town and forcing them to watch the saddest movie ever made, Beaches 2, on constant loop to harvest their tears and create a new cosmetics line. And now she's after Maxxie and her superpowered tears to go global and become filthy rich.
Excellent. Couldn't even, that just sounds like a lot of fun regardless. Of course, you're going to get all the gays there for Beaches 2, the movie that never was made,
Bette and Barbara come back to reprise the role somehow.
Exactly. Love those women. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what your Indiegogo project, you're trying to get the 50,000, but tell people, are there things you're going to be offering at different levels that you want to talk about so people can get an idea of what their investment will, not only just give them as little gifts and snippets, but, know that the project is moving forward. They can keep tabs on it and know where it's going, that kind of thing. So do you want to talk a little bit about the actual Indiegogo project?
Sure. So to get to our Indiegogo project, there is some magical URL. So the easiest thing is just to go to our regular website, maxxie.com, maxxie.com. And there's absolutely a link there. And there's also a link to view our little 2-minute adventure reel. And so on the Indiegogo, as I mentioned, we're raising $50,000 to help fund pre-production costs, like the development of what the look and feel is of the world and more character development and so on too. And there are perks that start at $25 and go all the way up to $10,000. So if someone is feeling particularly generous, they can, of course, leverage.
Hello, angels. We need you.
Absolutely. Oh my God. And there are also, like, if someone needs a tax write-off, then they can contact me personally for more information about that. But and so from $25, it's like kind of information. We'll be doing like a monthly newsletter. And if someone doesn't care to make a donation, that's totally fine. On the regular Maxxie.com website, there is a way to sign up for the VIP list, which is our newsletter. And some of these perks include getting a free video rental when we can start doing that. We anticipate that the film should be done by Christmas of 2023, give or take a month. And then we're currently planning on hitting the film festival circuit in 2024, January. And so Palm Springs International Film Festival is right around that time, and a couple others. And then as far as timing on release to theaters, that's always a distributor's call, but we are absolutely planning on going to theaters. And then, there'll be some theatrical time, and then they'll launch into all the video on demand services and all that stuff. So who knows all that timing right now, but that's kind of the rough outline.
Excellent. Well, what's really interesting too is that, just in case people may be really interested, want to invest, but maybe they don't have the funds. One of the ways you can also do it is to let your friends and family know that the Indiegogo project is out there. So that's worth its weight in gold too, just getting the word out there. So since people have now listening and hearing about this and watching it, definitely if you don't have the funds, we understand there's a lot of people still going back to work and getting their feet back on the ground financially. So, but in the interim, if you know people who would be interested, definitely spread the word. That definitely helps people like Anthony get these projects off the ground. And it definitely, I will tell you from looking at the rough cut, it is worth every cent that they're asking for, because it is a brilliant little piece of animation that I saw in the clip that I really liked. I mean, it gave me all the feels. So you should definitely do that. Is there anything you want people to know about the project, or the storyline, or anything else you want to share before we move on to getting to know you a little better?
Sure. Well, what's really fun about this project? Well, in the adventure reel, we see some scenes from this current project where, there are drag queens that are who've been kidnapped, and we see one lip sync number. We see the villain, Dyna Bolical, on stage doing her lip sync. There is a separate lip sync we don't see in this little adventure reel where the hero also will sort of shove her way on stage and do a number. We are also going to have a lip sync duel. So this adventure reel kind of shows a concept for that, although I think we're going to be making some changes to that. But still, it's fun.
Well, that's the evolution. This is blue. That will be like the cutting room floor cut edit that you'll provide on a DVD. There you go.
Exactly.
Or the digital file.
And what's really fun with like the lip sync duels, I really do imagine like this sort of like gunslinger standoff. They're like this, and then the camera pans around to like this, and they kind of crouch down and they leap into the air, and they have an aerial lip sync battle in this kind of crazy, inspired by RuPaul's Drag Race kind of lip sync. It'll be a lot of fun. And we're talking about doing a fourth one as well. So this movie is going to be just so much fun. It's going to be campy and just over the top and hilarious. My screenwriting partner is brilliant. His name is Michael Phyllis, and Michael lives in San Francisco. He's an actor and a director and a part-time drag queen. I actually saw him on stage as Patty from HR. He did his own kind of like, one drag queen show, and oh my God, he's brilliant, just brilliant. He's done a number of these kinds of shows.
Excellent. Well, shout out to him.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And so this is great. And I envision after this movie project, I really hope that we can get this picked up as an animated TV series. So I've got like a number of story topics ready for at least an 8-episode run of that. So let's hope that can happen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's kind of, I was just going to ask you if it was a one-off project or if this was something that you want to serialize. So I'm glad you said something, because that's another way, it's people start talking about this, we need a new hash. We need to send it out there, get people talking about Maxxie La Wow and get this going, because this is quality work. And I have to say, like I said, it gave me all the feels. It made me feel like a little gay boy kid again, eating my cereal with a scoop of ice cream in it, because I was a bad boy when I was a kid and mom was asleep. So it gave me all the feels. It's like the super friends I wanted to have. Okay. So, what's the best place for people to follow what you're doing? I will definitely put up the link to Maxxie.com so people can go and check out the project and know what's going on. But where's the best place for people to follow you and what you're doing?
So I say visit Maxxie.com, Maxxie.com. And that's where you'll find links to our socials. Instagram and Facebook are Maxxie La Wow. So Maxxielawow. You'll find links to there. You'll find links to the Indiegogo. And you'll also find links to our 2-minute adventure reel. And this is kind of a concept piece for what the film is going to be. We also put some scenes in there from potential future storylines, like the fairy women's motorcycle gang scene or the Were Unicorn scene. And those scenes are from potential future storylines. Sign up for the for the VIP list. That's the best way to kind of keep up with what's going on in this project. And then me personally, I'm at Anthony Hand on Instagram.
Excellent. And make sure, like I said before, if you can't contribute money, at least help get the word out so that please. People can, definitely take a look at it. And if they have the funds to do it and want to invest in something that will give people so much pleasure, I think definitely this is one of those projects. So definitely, if you can't afford to contribute, try to do what you can to get the word out to people so that they know that Maxxie is on the horizon and we need to get her there. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, the more support that we show, whether it's in social media or signing up for our VIP list or whatever the case is, or donating to the Indiegogo, any of these signals, this is when Hollywood takes notice. And Hollywood does a really crap job of representing LGBTQ people in movies or telling our stories. This is one reason why there's so many independent films and everything, or independent comic book or graphic novel projects. And so, again, the more that we demonstrate the audience is there, then the more that we can get Hollywood and other big companies to really start telling our stories as well and supporting our stories.
Absolutely. All right. Any final words of wisdom?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So I have to be smart?
No, I panicked. Did you see the panic in my eye?
I haven't had enough coffee for that.
So I have a kitty on my desk now, but I would say two things. One, you'll see on the bottom of the webpage on Maxxie.com, you'll see support drag and support queer voices. And so I say support drag because, with more than a year and a half of COVID, so many of our local drag entertainers have been, it's been a big part of their livelihood as well, not just their creative artistic expression. And so, support them with tips. Go to the queer spaces, whether it's drag brunch or a drag show at a bar or a virtual thing on Twitch, so please support our local drag artists. And the second is support queer voices. There are so many wonderful stories starting to come out more. Like recently you had on your show, his name was David Slayton. I had to look it up. Mm-hmm. And after hearing your interview with David Slayton, who wrote a book called White Trash Wizard, and I forget the second book in that series. I bought that book and I started it the next day at lunch and I devoured it all the way until I stayed up until 2:00 that night to finish that book. I loved it. And then, we also have Alex Wolfson, who, by the way, I met randomly on a tea date in 2009. He is so lovely and a great, a wonderful artist and creator working on queer comics, superhero-based oriented comics. So support queer stories and queer artists.
Absolutely. It's why we exist. The whole idea is that many of us aren't with the big five publishers, myself included, and Vance has written an amazing book too. But so we decided we needed to give a platform to those queer voices that don't have the backing of the big houses, but still need to get the word out there. And so, that's the whole reason why Rote exists, is to provide that space. And, this isn't a one-off. As you go on, if some new development happens, definitely come back and tell us. Keep us updated. Let us know, you know, the evolutionary process. I'm sure our listeners and our viewers would really, really love to hear what's going on. So, you know, that's also out there for you. Okay, well, yeah, absolutely. Okay, folks, so this has been the Rope Podcast. Thanks again to Anthony N for being with us. We have thoroughly enjoyed it. And we will talk to you soon. Take care. Spread the word.
Thank you.
Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.